Taj wanted to discuss bringing up kids. Is it different from our days?
I've been teaching my kids be good, but the world isn't good.
The biggest thing is always going to be social media and keeping up with technology, like keeping up with the Kardashians. Hi, welcome to Changing Suits. My name's Bal.
And my name's Taj. And I love the fact that you started smiling when you were middle.
I'm always smiling.
Whatever.
I know, most of the time I'm like this. Anyway, so welcome to our podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, perfect. That's great.
Please subscribe. Sorry, I want to say that.
No, that's fine. Please do subscribe.
It's so cheesy when people say that, but we have to say it.
Yeah, subscribe, because then that way you can see all the extra edits and stuff that you don't see on social media if you're not already following us on social media, of course. Or you might be listening on Apple or Spotify, which is perfect as well, because we have had a very good relationship with all of those platforms too. Anyway, so that's our sales pitch done. So this week, me and Taj wanted to discuss bringing up kids. Is it different from our days? You know, when people say, oh, it was different in our days. I know we don't hear that often, but you get what I'm saying.
I say that a lot now. So much.
In our days, like that.
And my daughter's like, oh, God, here she goes again.
And what do you say? What's the reason you're saying, in our days?
Well, there is so much that is different now. For example, let's start off with the phone. I think that's the bugbearer of all things.
Oh, I've got to tell you something. Go on, start the phone thing. And someone told me something that I thought you'd find it really cool. Go on.
Oh God, now I'm going to have to wait to find out what it is. Yeah. Anyway, so she's going to go to secondary school. And the thing is, everyone's getting phones and you need them for now for schools because everything's just apps. In our days, we had books.
In our days, we had books.
So her phone, she's got her dad's phone at the moment, and it's a really old one because we just wanted her to get used to looking after it. And it hasn't got WhatsApp groups.
What do you mean looking after it? What did you think was going to happen? Your son was going to come and mug her or something? What did you think was going to happen?
Like a pet and feed it every day.
Or like those Tamagotchis.
Oh,
do you remember those?
Yeah. But for her to keep it in her bag and then make sure she doesn't lose it and things like that. Thing is, she forgets it, she doesn't care about it, and then when she takes it to things like going Punjabi school, she's on there messaging me like, Mum, I'm not enjoying this. And it's like, why have you got your phone out in the middle of a class and a session? First of all.
But then don't you think that the fact that you've given her a phone, she's going to be doing that? Are you not encouraging? You're just joining the rest of the clan of the world, encouraging it.
She needs it for secondary school.
Why does she need it? We didn't need it when we were in secondary school.
Because it's a new way to socialise. If you are not in there with the WhatsApp groups, then you're not going to socialise. You're going to miss out on things.
Who cares about socialising?
Well, I know
she should be at school learning.
I know you don't care about socialising, but it's important to socialise. It's good for your well-being.
See, I think we're just feeding into this whole thing of everyone needs to get. I know this sounds really old school.
Are you saying that I don't get her the phone and then she'd be the only one that? And she's going to go. The school that she's going to is quite far away, so we'd like to track her as well.
All right, so listen to this. Okay, this is what I wanted to tell you. So I was talking to one of my friends, and she's got both of her kids like this watch where they can only make. So it's a SIM watch, but that watch only calls her phone. They can't call anyone else.
Just her phone and her husband's phone, or just her?
I'm assuming. I don't know. Who cares? Like, the point is just
a couple of options.
Yeah, but do you not think that's a good idea?
No, because my daughter, she's phoning other people in the family as well. Like
we don't want to hear from her. No, I'm joking. Don't tell her that.
So make her watch this.
I'm joking.
So she's phoning other people in her cousins. She's phoning, and they're liking the fact that she's messaging, and they're building up a relationship. And everyone's living far away, so I think she needs that phone for the connection. She's doing it without telling me, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But she's doing it. She's phoning her cousins, but we're going to be monitoring her phone. One, her dad's a very big tech person, so we can just spy her to death. I don't care about human rights issues.
Oh, okay, and that's another thing we'll discuss.
My kid, I don't care what anyone says, and she's all right with that as well because she understands. But
now she is,
because she's just had yesterday. She just had a lesson on grooming, which I think is a very important point as well. We'll probably touch on it later. But she understands why we want to keep a tab on everything that she's doing. Even we're going to have the tracking device on her phone. She's got it on our phones and she
But
tracks us as well. So it's a
okay,
relationship. We're doing it vice versa.
but the thing is, okay, so the difference is, I know Pardeep is very on the technology, so he'll know, what the latest thing is and how to keep tracks on them. But what about parents that don't have that tracking? I still want to go back to this
No, that's not
subject.
my issue, is it?
Fair enough. That's a good point.
I'm joking. No, I think it's important that we learn to keep up with technology, because if our kids go in, before, know more than we do, as in technology wise, how are we going to know what they're doing? They're in the right arena. They're not meeting bad people or horrible people, or
Bad people.
I know that
How old are you?
and,
Yeah.
like, people that could take them on the wrong path. Basically,
Okay,
we
so there's so many things that have come out of this, right? So in regards to what going back, if we're giving them the phone, and I get it, it's peer pressure, but we had peer pressure nowadays. In our days, we did have it. I remember the phone had started coming out when I must have been in year 10 or something, year 9, year 10, right? Year 10, 11 maybe. And my friends did have phones, and I was like,
uni when we were having the phones. Oh my god,
I know, but this is it. But then it was a case that the peer pressure was still there. I did still, and I never asked our parents for a phone, and I never
you'd
had,
never get it.
yeah, and I wouldn't have got it even if I did ask them, right? Whereas Sook was the opposite. He'd have the latest of everything. And we've had this conversation where it's like, well, you're getting everything. You've got everything, right? But then you care about what everyone else is saying and they're doing. Whereas I would have liked having the phone, don't get me wrong. But I didn't even bother asking my parents because I know they would have said no. In which case, what's the point of that conversation? But then it took it out of, in my head, of, oh, I need to be the same as you. And look, don't get me wrong. Like, look, human nature, we all want to be, I don't know, merged into the rest of society. I think as you get older, you're like, actually, I don't want to be merged in with society, and you want to show your individual. I mean, I'm well aware that's a thing. But what do you think of that? Sook he was the trend setter essentially, where he'd have everything. I was the opposite. I was the opposite of a trend setter. But who's in the right there?
I don't think
Me, obviously, because versus me and my husband. So
there isn't a right. I think we need to make sure our kids don't become materialistic. With us, I remember we had that one, which everyone probably did back in our day. You had that one computer that everyone, all the family, used together. And we don't have that now. Everyone's got an iPad each. But I think now, for example, me and my husband, we've got one car, we share it, mainly because we're stingy.
yeah, I can second that.
But it's a Fiesta. I don't care what everyone else is driving. I really do not care. It gets me from A to B. I like it. I like my Fiestas.
You like your Fiesta? See, I don't mind so much, but as you know, we had to change our car because of the ULEZ. Thanks very much, case. But so I said the Fiesta to Sook, for example,
I
because
don't,
I didn't care
I
either.
don't need to keep up with the Joneses. I really do not care what anyone thinks about me, my car. If they want to pay for it, please buy it for me.
Oh, there's a request. This is a request from Changing Suits. Anyone that wants to buy us a car, please do. Be great if you could also pay for the insurance and
Do you remember the podcast haters one?
yeah.
We're just going to feed into what people like. They're going to be like, oh, pass it, they're chipping. No.
But the point was, we don't care at the end of that. In which case, we can say what we like because it's our podcast. Anyway, okay. So going back to it, are we not feeding into a system of allowing peer pressure to rule our kids?
I think there needs to be a fine balance. These days, technology, it's the way of the world. You've got AI. Like, we've got AI writing essays, for God's sake. Are they going to be
In our days, we didn't have that. We'd have to write our essays all by ourselves.
So we need to make sure that we do move with the times. But, for example, now the kids' birthdays, we're starting to give them less presents because we want to make sure that they're not materialistic. So now, I think I've said this before as well, we're going out with them, building memories.
Yuck. Joking.
Building those memories rather than something like I had to get rid of loads of toys for my kids. It hurts because you're like, how much money was spent on this? And also, there's memories that are attached to those toys. But at the end of the day, they're still materialistic things. We need to clean up, get rid of stuff. Otherwise, it's just piling up. So then you need to make the decision. I think there's a balance of stop buying so many materialistic things and do stuff together. And they appreciate that more because the memories and the photos are cheaper as well, rather than buying an expensive present.
So all that's coming across is that you're being really cheap at the moment.
I I think this podcast should be called the Living Cost Crisis Podcast because I'm giving a lot of tips of how to save money.
The other part of what you said earlier on was the fact that your daughter is contacting family members. I was only joking. I do want to hear from her. It was a very cute text message she sent me. But you did say something in that sentence. You don't even know who she's contacting. Now, yeah, it's positive at the moment because she's contacting family. You know what I'm going to say here. The fact that you don't know is an issue, right?
I do know because she will tell me when she's going to put a friend's number in her phone. And we do have an idea. And there's that element of trust as well. I trust her. She's a very sensible girl. But when she gets to secondary school, she might be sensible, but I'm still going to dip into her phone and look. Because at that age, I think it's not a case of being sensible. It's you get lured into stuff. And it's not that you don't want to do the right stuff, but you want to
Fit in.
dabble.
You want to fit in.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did a podcast a while ago with Amit Kelly from Kelly Coaching, and he really opened my eyes with the whole social media and how dangerous it can be. But there's one tip that he did. He gave many tips, so if you haven't heard that podcast episode, please do listen in. But he said something that was really important, and it has come up on other podcasts, especially when it comes towards about kids, and it's about communication. So regardless of whatever happens, whether we're on it with the technology or not, one thing he did say is if you've got that good communication with your kids, they will tell you anyway. Do you agree with that? Well, I know you're going to agree with that. I thought that was the
I
best
completely
advice.
because I remember when we were younger, our mum used to say to our father, actually, she goes, it's really important that we communicate with our children whenever they come home, we make time for them. Because that's what her father used to do with her. They used to spend time and they were really close. And then we're really close to our parents as well. I think we tell our dad more than we tell our mum. Not that
That's
we're
because she doesn't phone us.
not that she that we're not close to her. It's because there's a different relationship. I think with everyone you've got a different relationship. And with dad, we used to come home and tell him everything. And that's what I want to embed as well, that they come home and tell me everything and my husband, who I need to encourage to do the same thing as well, because he's not used to doing that.
You say that we told our parents everything, right? Look, South Asian culture, we know we didn't tell our parents everything, right? It was the joy of being from the South Asian culture, right?
All right, we didn't tell them everything, but
Oh, all of a sudden, all of a sudden we
now,
did.
but now I think because we're a different generation, we've experienced the Western world, whereas our parents didn't, and they'd be more judgmental. I know I'm really contradicting myself. Judgmental. I don't think we'd be that judgmental, to be honest. So our kids may feel safer to come to us.
Do you know what? I would have agreed with that.
We might even encourage them to do naughty things. Like my daughter, she got a yellow card, which is for being naughty.
And you said go for the red.
And I said, do it. Did it feel bad? And she goes, no. And I go, then there's nothing wrong with breaking rules.
See, that's interesting because I'm not.
Because I've been teaching my kids be good, 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 but the world isn't good. Look at our government, for God's sake. How many rules have they broken?
Oh, political. No,
Not
that.
good.
Well, it's exploring boundaries then. But then if you're giving them the boundaries to say no, no, you break it because that isn't a boundary. Just go on, push it a bit. Is that then? Does that work?
No, because I've spoken to her.
Because it's your boundary still. You're
No,
like, no, no, go have fun.
because I've spoken to her teacher because I was like, she gets very anxious about doing her homework and she has to do it. And I explained to her, like, she acts as if the world's going to end. And we together, me and the teacher said, I know, one day, let's make sure she doesn't do the homework.
Oh, nice relationship with the teacher though.
Yeah. And let her see that it's not the end of the world, that she's not going to get killed or anything by the teacher. So yeah, it
Oh,
was
what happened with that then? With that
safe.
social experiment?
We didn't end up doing it, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy with this yellow card that she got that we didn't discuss. And I
What
went,
did she do for the yellow card?
really didn't do anything because my daughter's a good girl.
Yeah, of course.
Substitute teacher who came in thought that she was talking in lesson, but she wasn't, and she got a yellow card
Hold on, how do you know she wasn't?
because my daughter is not like that.
Cool. Okay, who's the other child?
But I went to it was really funny. I went to the admin staff because I needed to discuss something with them, and they know my daughter really well. And I go, "It got a yellow card," and they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then we had a little laugh about it because they know she's not like that. She's not a naughty girl.
Do you know what's really nice though? It's cute the way you've said, I went to the teacher, we made a little plan to make sure that Ikam got stressed about not doing her homework. But I got the point of, you're trying to show that it's not the end of the world. But again, you're going to speak to the admin staff as well. I can't remember which episode, but there was something on, look, the only other people that will be looking after your kid more than you will is the school. So you need to have a good relationship
Yeah.
with them as well. Going back to the fact that we're discussing, what it was like in our age and what it is like now. What other differences are you
Okay.
seeing?
So another thing, I think mainly because my daughter's now heading to secondary school, there's different things that she's experiencing, whereas your kids are younger, so maybe you're not going through these
Yeah,
issues.
which is why I think this is why I want to hear, like, because
There's a
you're in a massive
change of life.
change. Yeah.
So she had friends that knocked on the door to play with her.
I hope you said no.
So we had a discussion. She said no to them because she knew the answer would be no. And I'm glad she knew that the answer would be no. So we had a discussion, me and my husband did, and her we were all involved in it. And I said to her, "Do you want to go and play with them?" And she said no. And the reason why she said no is because she knew that we didn't want her to.
Same thing. So same thing is what I was saying earlier. If the answer is no, what's the point of the discussion?
But
Okay.
then I said to her, "Look, we're not saying no. Do you really want to go and play with them?" She goes, "Yeah, I do."
Oh,
We broke past what we expected from her and what she wanted.
yeah.
So then me and my husband had a conversation. He was like, "Yeah, go and let her play," and I'm like, "No, I'm not going to let her go and play. I'm I'm going to make the decision. I'm not going to let my daughter hang around on street corners, and either of my children, daughter or son. I'm not doing that." And so our
What, joining a gang,
well, you never
drinking
know,
alcohol.
but you never know escalation.
Yeah.
This is how I want to play it with my child, and if someone else wants to do it different with their child, good luck to them. And it's their parent, that's their journey. This is my journey with my daughter,
Mhm.
and I'm not going to say anyone else's journey is right or wrong because that's not for me to judge. This is how I want to do it. So our thing was we came to that's right.
Yeah.
We came to a decision where we said that she could play near the house where we could see her out of the window.
Mhm.
So her friends do knock round and they play where we can see them. She will go to friends' houses that we know very well, that we know their parents as well, and we won't let her just go to a random house. I'm not going to let her stay around people's houses.
So I had a text message from a friend of mine who's the parent of my son's friend. Does that make sense? So
Like
basically, it's my son's friend, and it was his mum.
the
Yeah. But anyway, she texted me and said, "Oh, I'm just making plans for my son's birthday, and I just want to put it out there and just see what responses we're getting. But would you be okay if they did a sleepover?" Now, you know, my son is 8, and well, firstly, I did reply. And I said, "Look, I'm not comfortable with it. We didn't do sleepovers, but now I'm a parent. I get why." Our parents didn't let us do sleepovers. And again, it came down to that. Look, I would have liked to when I was younger, but I get it now. Now, being the parent, I was like, no, I don't think I'm comfortable. And the other thing that made me uncomfortable was, well, if he's doing it for equal rights, then my daughter at the same age would be like, well, he's doing it, so why can't I? And that is even more ramped up. Where I'm like, with everything you're hearing nowadays, I'm not comfortable, and I don't think I'll ever be comfortable with that.
But I don't think we need to. I feel like we're forcing ourselves to want to do that. For example, we're like, oh, the fact that we're even questioning, okay, should we let them do it? We know in our heart of hearts we don't want them to do it. So we should be like, no, draw a line. But we're rethinking and revisiting.
But then, do you not think that we're just recreating exactly what we did? I mean, if that trust is there But then I know the answer to that. Yeah,
But
I,
it's not about the child, it's about the other person.
yeah,
Quite a lot of grooming cases and whatever cases happen with a person that's close to the family or someone that you know that is close. So it isn't so the fact that we got the statistics, why aren't we listening to them? They're not just there made up. There is actual factual hard evidence.
so I thought about this, and then the other thing that I was thinking was exactly that, because obviously you're going to go to worst case scenario. But the other thing I thought was, if I said yes and something did happen, how rubbish would I feel? Because I let that happen. Like, I literally would have let that happen. So it's the peer pressure on as a parent as well, though.
So the argument I like people that would let their kids go and do that, which again, it's up to them, no judgment, that's up to them. It'd be like the case of road accidents. How often do they happen? They don't happen that often. We still drive in cars. Same for why won't you let someone have a sleepover? It's not that often. This whatever some
Yeah.
sort of attack happens. So there is that argument as well. Yeah, that's that argument. That's logical, but I don't care. I'm going to do it how I want to.
You don't want to be that minority case
I don't.
whatsoever.
I'm not gonna. Yeah, I don't want to put them in that situation. They can go and be at a friend's house, and they can stay, and I will pick them up late if I have to. I will do that, but I don't want them to sleep around there.
Okay. Do you think, because we know with kids there is peer pressure, it's always been there, always will be there. As a parent, do you think there's peer pressure? Because if all the other kids
Yeah.
go on, yeah.
So living in Swindon, I haven't got that many. Well, I'm starting to get more South Asian friends, but I haven't got that many. So I'm talking to people that aren't from our community, and obviously there's different perspectives, and there's not that understanding of the South Asian community and why we do this way, and it's like you have to explain it, and then there's you still don't get it. So yes, there is that peer pressure of when I was talking to certain friends about my daughter playing with friends, certain friends just didn't get it. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to invest the energy into explaining it because there's a whole,
Sorry, what do you mean? You're going to have to explain it to me.
like, for example, my non-South Asian friends, if I was discussing it with them, it'd be like, no, let them go and play. But then if I spoke to a South Asian friend, they'd be like, "Yeah, I get it." And you
Mm.
don't have to explain the backstory because they understand why they didn't do it when they were younger. They understand why they're not going to let their kids do it. So, in that fact, yeah, there is peer pressure. It depends in the community that you're in, but it's
So
about
okay,
letting that peer pressure get to you. I'm not
so
going to let my kids do it.
so there that's a really interesting point, because we've got, obviously I live in West London and my kids are 90 what 5% of the kids that go to their schools are from the South Asian community. But you've got the opposite, not problem, the opposite problem, but the opposite. And so I do agree, I probably will have less pressure because people will be like, yeah, I get it. That's a really good point. In which case, do you think that we should be, because this is a conversation I've been having, I've had it over a few years when the kids were going to go into primary school and stuff. Do you think it's worth being within a school with the same, well, of South Asians, or do you think it's important that they aren't?
I don't think it matters either way because my kids are in a school where they're starting to increase with the South Asian community and other cultures that are coming in and other communities, but pretty much they haven't been, and I think they're confident children because they understand that they're strong in themselves, and there's the staff in the school have been pretty supportive as well, and that's made them confident as well. So if you've got a strong network, example, the school network, the school community, if you've got that and parents that are supportive and understanding, then I don't think it really matters who you go to school with. It's you as an individual. You just need to make sure your kids know who they are. And I think the kids should learn about other cultures and other communities. It's really important.
See, I do agree with that, because I think the issue is with all communities that came over, it has been very much a silo way of living, and that tends to go out throughout life. And that is why, unfortunately, we're in a place where there is high mental health problems, but we're not getting the support, for example. But part of that same conversation was, well, the kids are young. If we are allowing them to be with, because they do look different, my son's got a podcast now, my daughter's got a podcast, but they then spend their primary school years with people where they don't have to explain why they've got the vodka, why they keep their hair.
But then it makes them understand for themselves why they've got the burqa, why they're covering their hair, or why they're wearing a hijab. It lets them understand rather than just wearing it for the sake of wearing it.
Fair.
Because then they become confident in themselves, and then when they do go out to the big wide world, then they don't feel ashamed of it.
Hmm. It's an interesting point. See, I would have said exactly that. So a few years ago, when the kids were going to go into school, that before that, I was like, no, I'd want them to go to a mixed school. Now, with all the things that you're hearing, like the bullying cases and this case, that case, I know it's the extreme cases, but that's why we've been having those conversations of actually, we're really, I know you want to come in, but just to finish off, that's why I want them to build that foundation before they get into secondary school, where it's like, actually, now, hopefully, you're strong enough to sort of answer back if you had to.
This is something that I've been feeling really emotional about because, again, my daughter is going to go secondary school, and then we're planning for my son who's going to go to secondary school eventually. And it's really something that is really heavy, as in, I'm worried about how they're going to face the secondary school world, should I say, about the bullying, those things that we've been seeing on social media about kids being bullied. And it's just horrible. It's devastating. As a parent, you don't want your children to go through that. And seeing that, when you see it in your own community, when it's happening to someone, it's just heartbreaking. And you don't want your child to face that. So then you think, do you want your child to go to, then,
And
yeah.
that's where the conversations came from. As in, but it's a tough one because if we're gonna, and I'm gonna use the word integrate, and I hate using that word, but in all fairness, that is exactly what it is. But it's for other communities to also understand and integrate. Because, one of the things I've always said, because we're working with so many organizations and service providers,
Mm.
is a lot of them have come to us saying, look, we want to engage, we just don't know how to engage, which has been a positive. But then also from that, do they actually want to understand, or what is the appetite to understand, because all of us have a limited amount of time, right? And it works both ways, not just them to the South Asian community, but vice versa. How much do we actually want to understand and use the word integrate?
To be honest, the services that have approached us, I think they truly do want to understand
Yeah.
and why they've approached us, because it could have been a tick box, but I think the ones that have approached us genuinely do want to be understand and give to the community, which is a bonus. But again, this is to do with the school community. If they do not support you, if there's a bullying issue going on, then you're lost. Where do
Mm.
you go? Do you move your child into another school?
Do you know what? I've had this conversation with a friend of mine because one of her family members, her nephew, went through it. And I won't go through the exact cases, but it did come down to the fact, to the race card. It was that. It was exactly that. And the school didn't support. But we've always said that schools just haven't got it, though. I just think the bullying aspect just has not been nipped in the bud.
Do you know something? When I
And
go,
that's never changed. Just, the start of this conversation was, what's the big difference between bringing up our kids then and now? Nothing's changed from the school system.
and the sad thing is, when you go and ask if you want to go your child to start a new school, I ask them what is the anti-bullying policy,
Oh, do
and
you? That's interesting.
some of them actually look a bit shocked that you're asking them that question,
That's a really good question.
and you're like, wait, why are you so shocked? This should be already in part of your policies or whatever, so you shouldn't be shocked at that question. And I'm quite surprised that they're shocked at that question, because for me that's a very important thing, to see if the school will support you if your child goes through bullying.
But do you think the reason you're asking that question, the reason they're shocked, is because they don't have to deal with the other parents probably don't have to deal with that whole race issue, whereas you may well have to. It is likely that at
Then
some point you may have to.
why would they be shocked? Because it should be part of the package or
No,
whatever.
I guess no. When a question's asked when it's not commonly asked, for example, it's a good question. It's a good question. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I think everyone should ask that if it's something that is playing on your mind, and see the reaction of the school. And if they don't have an anti-bullying policy, then you
No,
need,
they will have one. It's just whether they know it off by heart.
yeah, and yeah, the fact, yeah, they should be able to talk about it and blah, blah, blah. If you feel comfortable in what they're saying, then okay, then it is maybe a good school to send your child. But if there's not much said, and it's like, yeah, here you go, here's that anti-school bullying, whatever, and they're not willing to discuss it, well, I think that speaks volumes in itself.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I might have to get someone on from a school. Very good.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay. So, okay, going back to what we originally started with, what is the difference between when we were brought up and when we're bringing up our kids? Firstly, we know social media is always going to be the big number one technology.
Everything is so much faster these days. We're learning sex education faster. Everything's faster. Everything's different, and it's not all to how we want to bring up our kids. And sometimes it's taken out of our hands, and it's up to the school to decide what they want for the children, which I don't think is right, but a whole big conversation in itself.
Okay. That's a tough one. Do you want to explore it?
No, because we haven't got enough time to do it.
Okay. Okay. That is going to be a topic though. Okay. As we come to the end of this podcast, what are the biggest differences and difficulties that you've had in raising your kids? And whether that's, the fact that you've realized what mum and dad used to say was actually true and we should have listened. What is the major differences and similarities?
Fast paced. Everything is fast paced. As in, social media has taken everything over. Now you're inviting the bullies into the home, and it's not all about bullying, but you're inviting people into the home. So that in itself is a threat. You don't just park it at the school gate or as soon as you shut the door. So you always are on your toes. You need to be more aware of what your kids are doing. But I suppose that was back in the day as well. You had to be aware of what your kids were doing.
But it's just harder.
It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the biggest thing is always going to be social media. Like keeping up with technology is like keeping up with the Kardashians, keeping up with the Joneses, as it were. So I don't know. It's a tough one, and I think as kids are getting older, we're sort of reflecting on how we were brought up, and it's like, actually, let's go back to the old days. So anyway, I think we'll call it an end there. That's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from you.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, changing_suits, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.